We are finally here at the launch of Persona 3 Reload. It is so incredible to finally be here and get our hands on the game, as we'll finally be getting what is the closest to being definitive of a release that Persona 3 has ever had. I say closest because it's not quite the definitive version, as much of the content from other Persona 3 releases will not be in the game. For many, this has been a huge source of disappointment, with some going as far as to say they're going to hold out until the definitive version of Persona 3 Reload actually comes out. Much like with Persona 4 Golden and Persona 5 Royal, people are expecting a Persona 3 Maximum Reloaded, as Atlus always does re-releases of the latest mainline Persona games. This is what they've been doing for a very long time, starting with Persona 3. So it stands to reason, of course, they'd be re-releasing Persona 3 at some point down the line. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button as we dive into all Persona news here. With that being said, Persona 3's development team was recently just asked about this exact situation, and what they had to say was incredibly fascinating. Asked by GamerWK and transcribed by Persona Central, they were asked about a P4G/P5R type remake, with Wada saying, quote, "Currently, we are not considering a revision like Persona 5 to Persona 5 Royal, which involves significant changes and additions to the original title, so fans can rest assured knowing that Persona 3 Reload offers a complete experience. Through this game, we have made great efforts to ensure that fans worldwide, including Southeast Asia, can access it simultaneously. Therefore, we sincerely hope that fans worldwide can enjoy Persona 3 Reload and have fun." Who could honestly say they're surprised that Atlus is saying this? Of course, there's not going to be any definitive version that you need to wait on. You should go ahead and buy the game right now, actually. On the surface, this seems like typical PR speak, and of course, it doesn't even matter whether it is or it isn't. I love Persona, and I'm going to be copying this game day one no matter what, even if I do have to double dip. However, this is where famed leaker Midori has had something very interesting to say that is going to completely shake up the way that Persona games are delivered in the future. This all being said, even though Midori is a reliable leaker who has been right almost 100% of the time about Atlus-related affairs, this is not official information from Atlus, and as such, I have to hit you with the rumor warning. All rumors should be considered completely and utterly false. Assume that everything I'm going to say to you here is a lie until it is officially confirmed by Atlus, and rumors are only reported for the fun of speculation. That being said, this is what Midori has had to say. Persona 3 Reload will receive DLC containing the answer in the future. Please wait for more information at a later date. This alone is huge, as many people were for sure that the answer was coming. I don't think any of us had any doubt that they were going to deliver that content in some way. However, we all thought it was going to be in the way that new content had been delivered for Persona games in the past, and that is not through DLC, but rather through having to buy another full-priced game years later. It seems like that is not going to be the case this time. Atlus is finally going to embrace modernity and just do some DLC rather than charging us for the game twice. Thank God. However, it gets even better and it gets even worse. Allow me to explain by continuing with what Midori has to say. Continuing onward, she says that multiple DLCs are planned and will release within the fiscal year. So this means that you can probably expect a lot more content to come to Persona 3 Reload after launch. She then continues by saying, the current DLC plan for Persona 3 Reload is modeled around the DLC in Sega titles such as Lost Judgment. For those of you who don't know, Lost Judgment received a $30 DLC that expanded the game by around 10 hours. A pretty significant expansion. As such, selling the answer as a DLC like that totally makes sense. However, this is where the bad news is coming in. So go ahead and brace yourself, because I know a lot of you are going to be incredibly mad about this one. Midori then says, the DLC is copying the business model, but not the contents of Lost Judgment DLC. This is an initiative from Sega to expand the longevity of their games, and there is no FeMC in any of the DLC. This includes cosmetics and music that will be part of this DLC. So when you first heard DLC and you thought that FeMC was going to be part of that, and any of the Persona 3 portable content, it would appear that that's absolutely not happening, which means the fate of FeMC is currently in limbo, with there seemingly not being any plans right now to bring her back. Now, this doesn't mean that FeMC is completely out of the game. game. Bear in mind that according to Midori as well, there is a Switch 2 version of this game coming, which is really interesting, right? There is going to be a portable version of Persona 3 Reload. Wouldn't that be the perfect time to bring back the Persona 3 portable content? You get it? It'd be like a remake of Persona 3 Portable. Though if that did hypothetically exist, I would hope that it wouldn't be locked to Switch 2 and would also be able to come to other platforms. However, this is Atlus we're talking about, though Atlus has gotten tremendously better about these things since they've been acquired by Sega. I'm not a terribly huge fan of most gaming acquisitions, but if there is one that I think has positively benefited consumers more than any of them, it has definitely been Sega purchasing Atlus. We would still not have ports of Persona 3, 4, and 5 on all platforms had they not. So honestly, I do feel like Sega has been driving Atlus in the right business direction. Just the fact that we're actually getting DLCs for this game that expand the story in the same way that you'd expect from a second edition of a Persona game without having to buy another full-priced game is a huge step up. Welcome to the modern day and age, Atlus. In terms of DLC helping the longevity of a title, it's really true. By continuing to advertise the DLC, the title remains in the spotlight. This is actually one of the big reasons that Final Fantasy 15, a lot of people hated the way the DLC was structured in that game, as you really needed the DLC in order to make the story complete, and even then there's a lot of debatability on whether the story ever got there. However, it continued to keep the game relevant and talked about on social media. So I don't think Sega is wrong in saying that DLC helps the longevity of games. Not just people buying the DLC after the game has launched, but in fact it keeps people talking about the base game. You also see this in other games too. Cyberpunk 2077 definitely got a massive boost from Phantom Liberty, with people not just buying the expansion itself, but also going back and checking out the base game. DLC can be hated and loved. My only thing is, give me a finished game that is a product worthy of $60 or $70 first, and if you can add on top of that, then I'm fine. However, if you don't give me something finished, then we have a problem. Now, one last quote makes me also think about why they may not be bringing FeMC to the game. Quote, Wada stated that one thing that surprised him is that the development budget and cost for this remake were much higher than the expenses for creating the original. This makes sense considering the extensive efforts and work put into making this game. Of course, video games are tremendously more expensive and more difficult and time-consuming to create than they were when Persona 3 was first created. The only thing I can think of if they decide to not bring FeMC to the table could very well be that whenever they look at the expense of creating the new character model, having to reanimate several frames of the FMVs, having to re-record several voice lines throughout the game, as well as record new content, it's possible they don't see the expense as worth it compared to what it would actually bring in financially. While they may not consider that profitable for a DLC, I also think, just like the original Persona 3 Portable, it's entirely possible that they will think it's profitable to do for a re-release, where they have to motivate people to buy Persona 3 again, which brings me back to the rumored potential of a Switch 2 port, and why that would be the perfect opportunity for that to come back again. But as things currently stand, there is unfortunately no clear plans for what's going to be happening with FeMC in the future. But just the fact that we're actually getting DLC for this game, there's not going to be an inherent need to double dip, I think lets us know that we can actually buy Persona 3 Reload with a degree of confidence. With that being said, I have scheduled a live for Persona 3 Reload where I will be playing the game tomorrow at launch. So go ahead and notify yourself for the moment that I go live. With that being said, subscribe and let me know in the comments below what you think about this news and if you're mad about FeMC. And I'll see you all in the next video.